Hey, welcome back! I hope you enjoyed making your very first video while keeping the filmmaking rules in mind. We have about 6 lessons left, I believe, which will be about accessories and camera support. Once you feel more comfortable with filmmaking, you'll quickly start looking to invest in some more equipment. Unfortunately, I have seen many missed purchases from beginner filmmakers. That's why I'd like to give you some advice about that, but also teach you about how to properly use something like a tripod, for instance. But we're gonna start off with the ND filter first. Probably the very first thing that I recommend to get as you're ready to spend some more money. An ND filter is a very simple piece of glass, a round filter that screws onto your lens. ND stands for neutral density, but essentially these are sunglasses for your lens. So the purpose of this filter is to block out light, but why do we need that? I mean, can't we just close the aperture if the video is too bright? Of course you can, but we've learned about the side effects that the aperture brings as well, which is a larger depth of field. A simple shot like this has almost everything in focus. The foreground is not separated from the background because of that. So if we would have the ability to block out light through an ND filter, we can open up the aperture again, making the depth of field more shallow, and thus we get a more cinematic shot. So that will already set your videos apart from the rest. Now, since the ND filter is designed to block out a certain amount of light, there are also different kinds of ND filters. Now, the amount of light that they block out is noted in their ND number. The higher this number, the more light is being blocked out, or the stronger your sunglasses are. Starting with ND2, which blocks out half the light, or in other words, it lets half the light through. And ND4 lets 1/4 or 25% of the light through. And if we skip a few numbers forward, an ND100 only lets 1% of light through. Actually it's pretty easy. The ND number refers to the fraction. So an ND16 lets through 1/16 of light. So there's one thing they made easy to understand. But now that we know the math behind these ND filters, what ND filter do we actually need now? Because half or 1/4 of light is still something not easy to visualize, right? Well, ND filters are most often used outdoor, where there's a lot of light. In such a case, you'll mostly be looking at an ND8 for overcast days, and an ND32 for when the sun is high up in a clear sky. Popular sets of NDs therefore usually consist out of an ND8, an ND16, and an ND32. Sometimes there's also an ND64 in there. And before you ask, can you screw multiple ND filters on your lens? Although it's not recommended, yes, you can. And the reason it's not recommended, and I'm going to take the ND filters back out of their case, I didn't thought this through, is because the light has to travel through 2 pieces of glass. And the more pieces of glass that the light has to travel through, the more the optical quality decreases, and you'll start to see things like ghosting or a softer image. That's why these fixed ND filters are so popular. They usually give you the best optical quality. It's like a prime lens, as we've covered before, like this one right here. A fixed 50mm lens is usually in better quality than a zoom lens of the approximately same price. This is due to the more glass elements needed in a zoom lens, thus the quality decreases. Although, take that with a grain of salt. Technology has come very far these days. Zoom lenses are definitely a great choice. Now, with ND filters like these, we have kind of the same thing going on in here. This right here is a variable ND filter. These are the zoom lenses of filters. They consist out of 2 filters, and more specific, 2 polarizer filters. But you can rotate them, and that way they let through more or less light. Isn't that cool? Let me just hold that right here in front of this light so that you can see what it actually does. Isn't that awesome? Basically, you get a range of around ND2 to ND400. So, in fact, you don't even need to think about the whole ND numbers anymore and the amount of light it blocks or lets through. You just twist the filter, look at your monitor, keep an eye out for the histogram, and that's it. And because of that simplicity, I also suggest you get yourself one of these. In fact, the only time that I work with fixed ND filters like this one is when I shoot scripted content where I have the time to swap filters and really want to get the best possible quality. That's usually during a short film, for instance. But for all the rest, I use a variable ND filter. Alright, so you've chosen your ND filter, good job. But now comes the diameter size. 73mm or 77 or perhaps 82. That's the filter size, the thread here on the back. And when you look at your lens, you should see a symbol like here with a number next to it. This refers to the filter size that your lens has. But then you realize that your other lenses have different filter sizes. So do you buy 2 ND filters now? Of course not. It is best to buy one ND filter with a large diameter, for example 82mm. That's a size that is often chosen. You can't screw them onto your lens, but you can find adapters for it to make them fit. These are called step-up rings. You step up from one filter size to another. And these rings right here, they just cost a couple of bucks, so I equipped all my lenses with them. Like right here, you can see that we go from, what is this, like 52mm to 82mm, and that way I can fit this very big ND filter onto a very small lens. I only had to spend money for one ND lens and it fits to all my lenses. And that's the story of the ND filter. In a nutshell, I recommend buying an 82mm variable ND filter and get step-up rings for every lens that you have. It's the cheapest and most versatile solution.